beat that you were listening to, and you were doing so on The Freak, on the radio frequency 97.1 on your FM dial. Now, tomorrow, we will be emanating live from a certain location. We haven't done this much yet as we've started this thing up and started down this road. In the past, we used to do this type of thing all the time. It hasn't quite fallen together just yet. These things take time, you know.
Be our third remote.
But it's our third?
Yeah, we've done Avenue Sports Grill.
Oh, yeah, that's right, we did.
Had a good time there. And then we did Pluckers.
Yes, so this is the third.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is going to take place tomorrow at the Diamond Factory.
How about that?
And the Diamond Factory is just across the way here on the other side of the tollway from where we are. I'll get the address for you in just a second.
I got it.
You got it?
It's 13719 Omega Road.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's in the Galleria neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Addison.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, we're going to have a very, very special guest with us. And we're going to have him for at least a good chunk of the show. We'll have him probably as long as he wants to do it. And I never thought I'd be here telling you this. This is something I never, ever thought I would say, but in these last few weeks and days and months, there are a lot of things that would apply to. Tomorrow, joining us on the show will be Greg the Hammer Williams.
How does it feel to say that?
Almost man bites dog.
Yeah.
I never thought I would be saying that, but we're having him on the show tomorrow. If you were around at the time, you know what happened. You know the story. You know how it ended. Didn't end well. And when it did end, I was pretty butthurt over the whole thing. I did not appreciate him taking advantage of me, of the radio station, of the opportunity he was given, of everything the way he did.
Okay.
And I was pretty much done with him.
Let's roll back the tape. For those of...
Yeah, we probably should
those
do that
of
before
them
we get into this.
that are out there that have no idea who you're talking about, what you're referring to, why you were butthurt, your history together. I think a nickel tour of your history would be in order.
I think it would.
Heck, Mikey might even like to hear some of this stuff.
Absolutely.
He was day one ticket. He was not the first person I talked to about doing this when we were putting the thing together and when I was given the okay to go out and start rounding up guys. He was not the first one I talked to, but he would have been had he been there that night. As things turned out, Junior Miller was. He was not, so I just blew the idea past Junior first. And then Greggo got in on it the next day. But I wanted, if I was going to do this, if I was going to put this thing together and give this thing a go, I wanted those two. Those were the two bedrock guys for me.
Did you know at the time that you wanted to partner with him?
Actually, the original plan was for Junior to do it too. It was going to be a three-way thing like this. But Junior felt like he didn't have a big enough and well-defined enough radio personality.
I know that feeling.
Do you now?
Oh, yeah. Like every day.
Yeah. Same.
Dude, you can hang with anybody.
Okay. All right.
But he felt like that he wouldn't be able to get a word in edgewise between Greggo and me, so he said, I got this other guy I'd like to do it with. And the other guy was a guy that I knew a little bit, and that was George, and that made more sense. So Greggo came in. We did the show together. We did the hard line together from the start. And it lasted until 2007. Along the way, there were a lot of bumps in the road, and there was a lot of pretty bad acting by Greggo. And when he left, I just completely, totally, 100% had it with him.
Okay. May I insert a couple things?
Do.
So 1994 until 2007. That is a span of 13 years that you guys worked together, maybe a few months longer than 13.
Mm-hmm.
At what point, if you can, even go back that far and pinpoint a general time, did you see a notable shift in the dynamic of loving working with this guy, this chemistry that you guys had that was undeniable, that just permeated the culture of DFW radio, that it's all anybody talked about? When did you feel that somewhat on rocky ground? When did you sense that it was headed towards some type of disintegration? How many years prior to 2007 were you kind of like, something's not right here? And we'll get to why things weren't right in a moment. But how many years would you say before Greggo left the show and the station in October of 2007 did you feel like things were starting to shift?
I probably was in a little bit of denial because I wanted it to work out. I thought it would work out. Whenever something would happen, I would think he would get back on track, and occasionally there were certain signs that he might. But it would go by the wayside eventually.
Would you say maybe 03,
Yeah,
04?
Probably 03, 04. That's what I was thinking.
I can speak, I don't know, pretty candidly about this and from a first-person perspective in some sense, because I was in the room on that show with you guys from 2000 until 2007, and I got to say, man, those first 3 or 4 years, it was undeniable. What you dudes had was absolute magic. There was this strange, like, polar opposite guys that somehow came together and had enough commonality and enough eccentricities, but enough care for what they were doing that it somehow meshed and worked. Because you have Mike, who is a very critical thinker, a mindful guy that is going to analyze things and probably think about things a lot more before he says them.
Up next, Rivers.
Things have changed since then, as we can all tell. But at that time, you had that side of Mike, a real smart, eloquent, sometimes verbose man. And then Hammer, Greg the Hammer Williams, was a dude that kind of shot from the hip.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't, I don't know if he put a lot of critical thought into some of the things that came out of his mouth. He was very, very much asked for forgiveness rather than permission. And more oftentimes than not, and there was one of the beautiful things about Greggo is when he would go off the cuff and say something just wild ass, more often than not, he didn't double down. You know, if he was called out, yeah, man, I did it. Wish you didn't, but I did, and that was kind of his MO. He'd apologize and admit that he was wrong. But there was just something about their unique personalities that when you put them together, it was magic.
Yeah. And I recognized that, and boy, I hoped it would never end.
Yeah.
I really did hope it would never end. I mean, I would still like to be doing it back as it was then to this day.
But something changed, and I'm sure you guys, since then, you have talked. And this isn't going to be like the first time you've seen each other in, 15 years. You have had interactions. You've had interfacings. You've probably had brief conversations with one another through the years. I know you came together for the Crystal Vasquez documentary about yourself. Mm-hmm. And I know that you guys were at the premiere together for that at the Granada. Is that correct?
Yep.
And I'm sure there was interfacings and discussions and maybe, some mending of bridges that to a certain degree, and you probably softened on whatever. I don't know if disdain's too strong of a word, but
it's probably not strong enough.
The butt hurtness that you had, from the way all that went down. I mean, but
Is that true? Have you?
One thing about me is that for the most part, a little time will take care of just about everything.
sure.
You know, I like, even if I don't have any interaction or there's no real effort to make things right or anything like that, over time, I get over everything, and I, to one degree or another, can put things behind me and go from there.
Because I do remember there were times where Greggo would reach out to Mike trying to connect with him and trying to make amends, and Mike just wasn't ready for it.
No, I would not have
He
it.
would turn the phone call down. He would ignore text messages, emails, and just distanced from Greg for a long time, to where he just wasn't ready to process all that and to let Greggo back in.
Well, I remember Super Bowls and stuff where Greggo would try to say hi to you back when he was with the fan or wherever, and apparently you would just walk right by him, essentially.
Yeah, I wanted nothing to do with them.
Yeah, because, and I'd like for you to speak to this, but it seemed like somewhere around 2003, 2004, something changed in him. And do you think the whole thing got too big for him?
Yeah, I think it did.
Was the attention? Because you hear stories about guys that the success happens at an alarming rate, and they just can't keep up. They can't manage their lives in the midst of all of that success and adoration, and he just took it to a level and started maybe believing the hype and got involved in some substance stuff and had some, and maybe some pre-existing addiction issues.
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, I think once you're an addict, always an addict, I guess, and
yeah.
those things can manifest in different ways, whether it be sex or drugs or alcohol or relationships, and he probably had that gene the whole time.
There's no doubt about it.
And it manifested in ways that were detrimental to us doing a show together.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, I suspected...
And untreated, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, I suspected almost from the start that somewhere in there, something like that was in him.
Yeah.
That was somehow a part of his makeup. For a long time, I didn't really see it, and when I did start to see it, like I say, I was in denial because I wanted what we had to last. And I didn't think without him that we could make it last. And yeah, I think that was definitely a part of it. That was definitely a huge part of it. And when he went off the rails, he really went off the rails, and at some point in there, I realized, again, I was probably in a big denial over this too, but I realized that there was no getting him back, that I just couldn't deal with this anymore. I couldn't work with this anymore, and I didn't want to have anything to do with him.
Was he sensing that, or was he oblivious?
No,
to that at the time?
He sensed it.
So you guys
he
basically...
always used to tell me how he thought I hated his guts.
And
by that time, I probably did.
And this is while you guys were still together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was limited or no interaction other than doing the show together
Just
for the last many years.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and I can
he knows this better than anybody.
It got to the point where the show meetings, if there were show meetings, there would be no conversation between the two, and during breaks, no conversation between the two. And if it had to do with anything regarding content on the show, it would be met with one-word answers or "Yep, sounds good, okay."
So just disdain for each other.
The friendship kind of dissolved, and then when the show was over, it was like he went his way and Greggo went the other way, and I doubt that in between 7 o'clock at night and 3 o'clock the next day that there was any communication between the two of them.
None whatsoever.
And here's me and Corby, not young by any means, but young in the business somewhat, watching these grizzled veterans and watching how they're interacting with one another and seeing how it kind of like it went that way. And our minds are like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Who are we working with? What is this dynamic? This can't be the norm. This is not right. So it was a lot. It was a lot of emotional stuff to
It was a lot
kind
on
of carry
everybody.
around. Yeah, for sure.
So I worked at the ticket maybe a few months before the final blow or the blow up, or he was relieved of his duties. One interaction with him. I can't wait for this tomorrow. I don't have much to add other than questions, I suppose.
And C News.
I will do C News, celebrity news tomorrow. By the way, the reunion is the big story tomorrow, but
Sure.
this is going to be a themed show tomorrow.
Yes, we're going to structure this as close to an old hardline show as we can.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot more to it. Than
We're gonna
just,
we'll have a little bit of fun
we're
with
going to have a
it.
little fun, including C News
Yeah. C News.
and neighborhood news nugs. Okay.
Everybody loves them.
But I know there was neighborhood news nugs. There was some substance situations, but I think ultimately, whenever I talked to you or Corby about it back then, I guess it was the lying. That's what they kept bringing up.
Yeah.
Man,
is the biggest issue. And
Yeah,
I don't.
you're absolutely right, because when you work for a corporation like the one we work for now, like the one we worked for back then, if you come out and you're transparent about your issues with addiction or whatever it may be, drugs, man, the support that is available to you and the people that will champion you and get behind
Especially
you,
if you're important enough.
absolutely,
Which he was.
the resources that are afforded to you to make things right, because they need for you to turn it around, because they're paying you an inordinate amount of money.
Right.
Listeners depend on wanting you on the air. They'll do anything they can to get you through whatever treatment that you need and pay for all of it. And that was a big problem, is he never fully embraced those opportunities until it was too late. And, you know, by all accounts, from what I understand, he's been clean a very long time. You know, but yeah, it was the lack of transparency, and it just got to a point. And I know, Mike, you experienced this on a far amplified level than we did, but it was the inability to trust anything that when you can't trust anything that somebody says to you that you've been close to for so long, you really don't know where to go with that.
No, you don't.
And shutting it down is probably the best thing you can do.
Yeah, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a conversation with him. If he said anything to me, I didn't believe it. And I would minimize my answers. I would minimize any and all interaction with him. And that's just the way it was for the last part of his time there.
So 13 years together on the air, and it's been 15 years since you were last on the air together.
That's right.
I know you said you've had a few interactions at the Granada, maybe at a Super Bowl here or there, but essentially very little communication until yesterday. That has to be the first time you spoke on the phone in
At length.
15 years.
Yeah. And, I would see him at the Super Bowl and I would just completely, totally, 100% ignore him. But again, like I said earlier, a little time takes care of everything with me. And I kind of softened over the years. And when I found out that Crystal was going to get him involved in the documentary.
Yeah, the documentary about Mike Rhyner.
Yes, whereas once upon a time, I would have said, no, don't do that. Find somebody else. I said, okay, you can talk to him if you want to. And there were a few scenes up there where we were in the same place at the same time for the first time in years. And I recognized that he was kind of doing me a solid here. And so I'd best play nice, and I did.
How was he on the phone yesterday when you called him?
He was okay.
I know he's excited about this.
Oh, yeah, he's very excited about it. He's looking forward to doing this, and I fully expect that tomorrow, and I know this flies in the face of everything I just said, but I fully expect that tomorrow we're going to get straight up Greggo.
Yeah.
He's going to tell the truth about stuff.
You know what? If it's okay with you guys, I would love to toss this to the other side, but I want to leave you with a question to think about, okay? And you talked about all of those times where he tried to reach out to you, the walking by him at Super Bowls when the ticket would be there, and then either the fan or whoever else he was working for at the time, and the shunned email replies, the ignored text messages, the unanswered phone calls. Now, I know that you were doing that in a lot of ways to create some distance, kind of self-protect against the because you just didn't have the ability to trust this person in any possible way.
No.
But the methods that you took to do those things, I'm curious if looking back on it now, because it's been so long, I'd love to know if any of that you regret, and if so, how much. And if we could talk about that next, I would love to hear that.
All right, we can do that. It's going to be live. It's going to be tomorrow. It's going to be Mike Rhyner and Greg the Hammer Williams for the first time in 15 years. And it's going to be at the Diamond Factory on Omega Road, and it's a remote. How perfect is that?
No.
Come meet the Hammer.
Meet the Hammer. And I emailed him some info about the event, and he's like, oh, cool, it's remote. Hopefully some old friends will come out and say hi. And he wants that to happen, too. So if you're intrigued by what we're doing tomorrow, it'll be live at the Diamond Factory, so please come join us. Great.
And everybody has my word. I will play nice.
We shall see from 3 to 7 the whole damn time tomorrow. All right.